Remembering Kevin Conroy. This is Nerdist Now. It's been very somber around the Nerdist offices since the passing of Kevin Conroy, the actor best known as the voice of Batman and Bruce Wayne in Batman the Animated Series. It's unfathomable to us to think that 2 generations of kids have lost their Batman. I remember in 1991, when Batman the Animated Series debuted, thinking the voice of this new cartoon Batman was so cool and so perfect. Later on, I learned it was an actor named Kevin Conroy. For 30 years, the actor and character have been inseparable, and they still are and ever will be. Sadly, we won't get any new Batman adventures with Conroy, as he passed away at the age of only 66 after a short battle with cancer. But this video isn't going to dwell on the sadness of losing such an icon, but rather, we're going to celebrate his tremendous work both on screen and off. Conroy was a Juilliard-trained theater actor who performed in both New York and at the Old Globe Theater in San Diego. During his time in the theater, he received rave reviews for his starring performances in A Midsummer Night's Dream at the Public Theater, Eastern Standard on Broadway, Arthur Miller's The Last Yankee, and in the title role of Hamlet in the 1984 New York Shakespeare Festival. He also had a long string of film and television credits, most notably in the mid-1980s when he had recurring roles on Dynasty, Tour of Duty, and O'Hara, successful runs on soap operas Search for Tomorrow and Another World, and guest roles on popular series like Cheers, Murphy Brown, Spencer for Hire, and Matlock, usually playing a hunk with a great voice.
Who is it?
It's me, Rachel.
My baby. My baby.
But for all his other accomplishments and accolades, it was his preeminent work in the vocal booth that earned him legendary status. Beginning in 1991, Conroy gave voice to a new animated version of Batman and his alter ego Bruce Wayne. He was the perfect blend of charming and prestigious as Bruce Wayne, while also commanding the screen as the Caped Crusader of Gotham.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman!
His impact as the character was so pervasive that even after the end of Batman the Animated Series, Conroy remained in the role time and time again. From appearances on Superman the Animated Series, to playing the elderly version of Bruce Wayne in Batman Beyond, to Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, Conroy was the voice of the DC animated universe.
The voice kept calling me Bruce. In my mind, that's not what I call myself.
What do you call yourself?
In 2009, Conroy and co-star Mark Hamill would reprise their roles as Batman and the Joker respectively in the hugely popular and influential Arkham trilogy of video games. Taking control of a beefed-up version of Batman with Conroy's voice in your head was perfect. Rocksteady Games very smartly realized for the people they hoped would love their games, Conroy and Hamill were those characters. No better way to legitimize their games with long-term fans. In total, Conroy provided the voice of Batman in nearly 60 different productions, including 15 films, highlighted by the acclaimed Batman Mask of the Phantasm, which for us is really top 3 Batman movies. Additionally, he appeared in 15 animated series spanning nearly 400 episodes and more than 100 hours of television, as well as 24 video games. Conroy was also featured as Bruce Wayne in the Arrowverse's 2019-2020 Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event, finally getting to play Bruce in live action.
I never thought I'd get a chance to do it on camera, because I was getting older and older and older. I was sort of aging out of Batman, you know? But luckily, I aged into old Bruce Wayne.
Mark Hamill, one of Conroy's longest collaborators, had this to say about the late legend. Quote, "Kevin was perfection. He was one of my favorite people on the planet, and I loved him like a brother. He truly cared for the people around him. His decency shone through everything he did. Every time I saw him or spoke with him, my spirits were elevated. For several generations, he was the definitive Batman. It was one of those perfect scenarios where they got the exact right guy for the exact right part, and the world was better for it. His rhythms and subtleties, tones and delivery, that all also helped inform my performance. He was the ideal partner. It was such a complimentary, creative experience. I couldn't have done it without him. He will always be my Batman." Emmy-winning voice director and legend Andrea Romano, who worked with Conroy for several decades, had this to say. Quote, "Kevin was far more than an actor whom I had the pleasure of casting and directing. He was a dear friend for 30 plus years whose kindness and generous spirit knew no boundaries. Kevin's warm heart, delightfully deep laugh, and pure love of life will be with me forever." And writer-producer Paul Dini, one of the key creatives of Batman the Animated Series, Batman Arkham City, and many, many more, spoke of Conroy's generosity both in and out of the booth. Quote, "Kevin brought a light with him everywhere. Whether in the recording booth giving it his all, or feeding first responders during 9/11, or making sure every fan who ever waited for him had a moment with their Batman. A hero in every sense of the word. Irreplaceable, eternal. For people like me who grew up with Conroy's Batman on TV, I truly grew to love the whole Batman mythos thanks to those animated adventures. Kevin Conroy's voice is the one we all hear when we read any comic book version of the character. He's not simply the best and most perfect iteration of the character, he's an example of how to share your gift with as many people as you can. All of us wish to be as cool as Batman, as kind as Batman, as heroic as Batman. While the movies tend to go darker and darker, believing it unrealistic to be otherwise, Conroy's performance and off-screen presence will forever represent the platonic ideal of the Caped Crusader.
Well, I live in New York.
Yeah.
I'm a New York
You're
actor.
a fancy schmancy actor.
I grew up around New York. I'm a native New Yorker.
Yeah.
And when 9/11 happened, the one thing everyone knows about what happened on 9/11, but what a lot of people don't realize is what happened on 9/12, which is that literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people ran downtown to see how they could help. And they gave a number to call because they were so overwhelmed with volunteers. And I called this number, and they said, I said, well, we have all the tunnelers, we have all the diggers we need, we really have all the relief workers we need. They said, do you have any restaurant experience? I said, I'm an actor. Of course I have restaurant experience. They said, well, that's what we really need.
You want
we have
fries
to
with
feed,
that asshole?
We have to feed all these people.
Yeah.
And they said, well, when can you be there? I said, well, when do you need me?
I'm
They
an
said,
actor, I'm
"We
not
need
working.
I said,
I can do that
I'm
right
between
now."
gigs.
Yeah.
I don't have a job right now. They said, could you be here for the evening shift? I said, yeah, when do you need me? They
Fantastic.
said, now. Get down here now.
Yeah.
So they'd taken over a restaurant, which was empty because of what had happened around it, and called Nino's. And they set up this huge feeding service for thousands of people. And what was happening was all the restaurants from Midtown were sending their food down to this kitchen.
Right.
And we were cooking it up and serving it out. And it was just a constant stream. And you know, it was the weeks right after the attack.
Brutal,
So
just brutal.
downtown had this sort of sulfurous smell to it. And it was a very hot September. And it was just somber. And there was no electricity down there. There was everything was on generators. So you had the constant hum of generators. And they had these huge Klieg lights shining on what was called the pile.
Right.
And
That's pretty much what it was.
it was. And people would come in from the pile covered with ash and covered with dirt, and we were feeding them. So this goes on for, you know, I was doing the night shift from 6 p.m. to about 6 a.m., 5 a.m. We'd set up the kitchen for the...
Just like Batman.
Just like Batman.
Yeah.
We'd set up the kitchen for the morning breakfast, and then we'd leave.
Yeah.
And one night, in the middle of the night, like 1, 2 in the morning, this guy next to me at the oven says, so my day job is I'm an architect. He said, what's your day job? I said, well, I'm an actor. He said, I thought I knew
Thought I
your
recognized
name.
you.
I said, he said, you're the guy that does Batman.
Oh.
I said, how do you know that? He said, everybody knows who's Batman. I said, no, believe me, everyone does not know
Just
who's
makes my
Batman.
heart happy.
Isn't that funny?
Everybody knows Batman.
I said, nobody knows who's Batman.
Isn't
He
that
said-
great?
He said, oh, can I go tell the guys in the dining room? I said, nobody's gonna care. He said, are you crazy? He said, wait till you hear this. So he goes out in this big cavernous dining room and he goes, guys, you're not gonna believe who's been cooking your dinners all week. It's Batman. There's this long silence and you hear from the back of the place, bullshit. Because they're all New York firemen or cops, right?
Shut up. Yeah.
And then I thought, and then someone else says, make him prove it. So I thought, this is too good. So I'm back in the kitchen, I'm a theater actor. I have a big
Yeah.
voice. I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman. And there's this long pause. And you hear, holy that is Batman.
Isn't that beautiful, though?
It was so New York.
I
you know?
love that.
Holy
And
and they just came pouring back into the kitchen, and suddenly there was all this laughter. And people were like, oh man, you know the one with the Joker, and how was that Harley Quinn, and blah, blah, blah. And I watched that with my kids. And the guy who was the architect who'd recognized me, he said, how does it feel to be Santa Claus? I said, what are you talking about? He said, that's what just happened. He said, Santa Claus just came here. These people, he said, don't you realize it's the first time we've heard laughter in 2 weeks?
Yeah. How do you eat?
And it was suddenly this light moment.
Yeah.
So I wrote a note to Andrea that night. I sent her an email. I said, I just wanted you to know that what we do makes a difference.